there's a whole like counter to this now. If you look, I assume this is what you would call Black Twitter. You see a lot.
Oh, Jeremy's ventured outside of his safe space. Eh? He's entered a new area of Twitter, Black Twitter. Ah, I see.
Fake stories so that they can pretend that this is a widespread problem everywhere, and we're just going to have to pretend that this is such a big problem. We have to continue to kneel for the national anthem and play the black national anthem at NFL games, and march in the streets and burn cities to the ground. It's all.
But this isn't about race, everybody. Definitely not about race. Definitely not a bunch of man children super mad about a black mermaid. I hear you all saying simultaneously, screaming into the void. Why would you cover this, Lance? You've talked about some very serious things. You talked about the war in Ukraine. You've talked about trans rights. You talked about tons of different topics. Why in the world would we talk about this silly, stupid little story that's the same thing that always seems to happen? Well, guess what? The right knows, and has known for some time, what culture war issues can do. Yes, Steve Bannon has said that culture is right next door to politics. They're in order. They know that if they continuously distract everybody with a whole bunch of issues that aren't very real or actually going to affect their lives, such as green M&Ms cannot smash, Dr. Seuss is a big old racist, Mr. Potato Head is now just Potato Head, these kind of things get people angry, they spread false consciousness, people get distracted from the things that actually do impact their lives. You can use very populist terms like the elites to talk about these kind of things. But at the same time, they also reinforce some things, and there's an entire fucking ecosystem that reinforces things, such as white supremacy and patriarchy. You might think I'm being exaggerating there, but I'm not, okay? Everyone, and this is the same thing that happened with Gamergate. They tried to say that what they were doing with Gamergate was a noble thing because they were ultimately concerned about ethics and journalism. That was the cover. That was the cover that everyone was using. And in this case, they just don't want to have forced diversity thrusted upon them. That's the way they word all this. So they're like, I'm not a racist. I don't care about this. I just, why not have roles for black people that are based on black mythology or stories, okay? And leave all of the roles in comic books to be exactly the specific race those individuals happen to be. That's just the way I want it. That's the way I want life. And I'm not a racist. I'm not a sexist, okay? I just don't like gender swaps. I don't like racial swaps, ethnic swaps, however you want to word it. I just care deeply about movies and storylines. And that's why I need to do campaigns to vote down these properties before the movie even comes out, because I care about the plot. It's definitely about the plot. I'm very deeply concerned. That's why we need to do this entire campaign, my friends. So everyone, go to Rotten Tomatoes right now and start filling up that score months, maybe even years before the movie comes out. Let's get it to like 2%. If we can do that, amazing. Let's downvote every single YouTube trailer that we can find, blah, blah, blah. And the weirdest thing about all this, to me ultimately, outside of the why are you so concerned about kids cartoons, the Quarterine, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm surprised he didn't make like 10 videos about how Ariel's boobs aren't big enough or some other weird shit like that. Like, is that they're trying to do this whole thing with a veneer that they genuinely care about movies. This is not about the movies. If it was about the movies, you wouldn't be getting these kind of countdown? These kind of thumbnails. The wokest backfire in history. Disney demolished. Look, and there's the laughing face. The wokening, the great woke of wokening has woked, and they woked out. Amazon freaks out. Rings of Power will never do anything because they went way too. Rings of Power is in panic mode because of the wokeness. Oh, really weird how we're changing the way these people look in the thumbnails. But it's all too woke for them. Feminist disasters. Wokening. More woke. Woke. They're using the term. Maybe we'll pull up the dictionary definition for a sec. Just because it's good to do a little bit of an education, okay? But it's usually about whether or not you are aware of racial injustice, specifically pertaining towards the oppression of black people. Woke is an English adjective meaning alert to racial prejudice or discrimination that originated in African-American vernacular English. Beginning in the 2010s, it became to encompass a broader aware of social inequalities such as sexism, but has also been as a shorthand for American left ideas involving identity politics, social justice, and the notion of white privilege and slavery reparations for African-Americans. Now, conservatives, as they often do, like to take words and then gobble them up and then try to change them into something completely different. And they've changed it into woke is thing I don't like because it's not straight white cis dude. So every movie must just have big, strong, straight white cis dude. If we fucking deviate from that in any way, then they've gone woke. And inevitably, we'll go broke. It's just only a matter of time. Now, they've been pretty fucking wrong on the whole go broke stuff. What this is basically, it's usually a racist or a sexist campaign because suddenly there's a woman Jedi and she's the star of the movie, or there's a black person and he's a co-star of the movie. So they've gone woke. All right, so they have to go broke. So now we start our campaign of hate, and let's get in there and let's downvote these fucking properties just so everyone realizes just how terrible they fucking are. And here's the other thing about it. I don't want to have to defend Disney because Disney fucking sucks. So I'm not here to say that every Disney live action remake isn't a fucking horrifying, soulless cash grab. They are. They are. And they're terrible, okay? They're terrible fucking movies. I don't think that Disney is intentionally trying to, as Chris Ray suggested, drum up controversy single-handedly to be able to promote their shitty films. Being like, we have to turn them each one into its own cause, and so let's do this. That's him playing into this whole go woke, go broke shit. It turns out, broadly speaking, in society, if you look at polling, most people do not hate LGBTQ plus people anymore, or not nearly as much as they ever used to. Most people accept, broadly speaking. That's the way, all these corporations have pride symbols. It's not because they suddenly went woke. It's not because they suddenly said, oh, you know what? This Bank of America, now's the time. We have to make a stand. Raytheon, the arms manufacturer, we have morals. Yes, we do. We're not just soulless war profiteers. We need to take a stand. We need to put a rainbow flag up to show everyone that we have solidarity with the LGBTQ plus community. We love them. No, these are all corporate decisions. Disney spends a fuck ton of money on studying and analyzing what is going to sell and or produce some capital because they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to do that. They're not in the interest of making movies that constantly bomb because you couldn't do that for very long considering how big giant franchises have to be. Here's the shitty thing under capitalism. And this is to the beards, by the way, all the gross neck beards of the internet. Every single one of you is now grappling with how shitty capitalism is, but you don't understand it yet. They're like, in the same way, you're like, my free speech with tech companies, the First Amendment, even though the First Amendment is about the government passing laws. It's not about whether or not your boss can fire you from your job if you said the N-word. He can. But anyways, it's not about that. But when there's these companies that form complete monopolies and dominate industries, such as Disney or other big massive media companies, and they start spending huge amounts of money on movies, sometimes almost $500 million on like an Avengers film or 2 movies or whatever, they have to make a return on that capital. And so that's why you're going to see the same movies come out over and over and over. Disney is going to remake their entire catalog into live action films until they catch up with the old cartoons, at which point they will reset and do it all again. And then they will do it again another time. And as long as they're allowed to, they'll keep doing it and they'll keep extending copyright because that's just the way this whole system works. And you haven't been able to figure that out. So for you, your only way of processing the world and understanding this is you think that they are trying to influence society. That's what this is. Yeah, Disney bad, Disney evil now, and Disney is trying to influence society and make us actually like black people. That's what they're trying to do. They're going woke, and they will go broke because no one can go fully woke. That's the truth. That's it. Like, I've just laid out the entire thing for you.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and Disney is getting absolutely obliterated in their Little Mermaid official teaser trailer. Right now, it is sitting at 471,000 dislikes. Now, it does have 116,000 upvotes, which is, I would reckon, probably pretty good. But with 500, nearly 5.
That's one hell of a ratio. Oh, well done, I guess. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. The movie looks like shit. Just like objectively, I don't like any of the live action remakes. It looks like incredibly low lit. The lighting, I don't know what they're going for. I have absolutely no problem whatsoever with Ariel though. Especially the fact that Ariel's black. Who gives a fuck? It's a movie about a half human, half fish. That like there is no canon here in which Ariel must be pristine and Aryan and white as the driven snow, lest it be inaccurate, historically inaccurate.
500,000 dislikes. There must be something going on with it. Now, we all know that they took this Dutch fairy tale and, how do I say? Reimagined it. Oh, wait, no, modernize it.
See, the Quartering has himself a little audio voice box. Nice, neat. I'm glad to see you improving your craft after, what, a decade? It took like a decade, and now you've introduced this new feature. Look, I can make sounds now.
Modernize it for a modern era, and
it was Danish, not Dutch. Ah, what? You didn't even Google that? All right. By the way, I could be wrong, but I knew it. I knew it. I remember hearing about this. There was a Japanese anime adaptation of The Little Mermaid in 1975.
Do it.
Japan versus Disney. Interesting. So this was before. This was even before Disney.
there was one particular change that everyone noticed almost immediately. Media coverage, however, has been absolutely hilarious. Now, I don't have any issues whatsoever with this actress.
Weird, because you made a thumbnail, the one that was showing a picture of her next to a incredibly white Ariel, saying, "Oh, woke backfire, Disney, huge woke backfiring. Oh, look at all the downvotes. It's because of the content of the movie we haven't seen yet. You see."
I have no interest in seeing The Little Mermaid. I don't have kids, and so this movie isn't for me. But I will say it's been
Why do you obsess over this shit?
hilarious. And we're going to take a look at the disaster surrounding all this. Some cutting criticism.
They reimagined it when they did the cartoon version. Hans Christian Andersen wrote Little Mermaid about his experiences of being gay. I love fish out of water for real? No way! I didn't know that. The whole thing's a gay allegory? Even better. Oh man, okay, so we gotta have a gay Little Mermaid story, alright?
I mean, this is like, you know, the facts over feelings crowd is looking a little emotional right now. There's a whole like counter to this now. If you look, I assume this is what you would call Black Twitter. You see a lot.
Oh, Jeremy's ventured outside of his safe space. Eh? He's entered a new area of Twitter, Black Twitter. Ah, I see. I guess this is what you could call Black Twitter.
A lot of people saying like, I'm literally crying. The Little Mermaid was my favorite as a child, and I always played Ariel when swimming. Seeing a black woman play her in live action warms my entire heart. Well, I hope you buy a ticket to see it. Probably. They'll probably need you to buy a couple.
How do you find a comment like that to be condescending of? Like, I have also no interest in seeing this movie. I haven't really liked any of the live action remakes so far, so there's no reason for me to suddenly think this one's going to be any different. They're all, again, soulless cash grabs. But like, if someone is happy that some representation is suddenly making them feel joy in life, why would you be like, yeah, fucking buy tickets to the movie then, they'll need it, bro?
Tickets. I'm no fan of literally any of the I'm a fan of none of these live action remakes. They're just, I don't know. But I don't know how the heck they make money. They do though.
I thought they all went broke. Haven't they all gone woke and therefore will go broke? Or is that just a weird slogan you keep saying to justify racism?
I mean, I don't know if all these people who are, you know, going to see Ariel to totally own. Like, Little Mermaid is one of my favorites as a little girl. Now a black woman is playing her in 2023. What a great moment this is going to be. But like...
That's the only part about this that actually warms my heart, is that people are like, wow, it's going to be incredible for my little children to grow up and not have, like, when I was growing up, I'll have you know, almost every single superhero, character, action hero, star, princess, you name it, everyone was white. Every single one. And that must have been really weird to grow up as anything other than white and suddenly think like, wow, I guess these are the standards. This is what action heroes should look like. This is what beauty should look like. This is what like strong men should look like. This is what rippling muscles should like blah, blah, blah. Like the things and the psyche that would do to that, maybe subconsciously, I don't know, maybe that played into the whole thing of me telling my mom that like I was ashamed to admit that I was part Indigenous. Maybe that played into it. I don't know. I have tons of friends who I've talked to who are either brown or they're Asian, and they grew up and they're like, oh yeah, I grew up in like a white suburb and I really wanted to be white. And like, maybe that all plays into this entire thing. I don't know. So the only thing that I can take from this, outside of like, you know, again, another soulless cash grab from Disney, is that's good. That's a good thing. There should be other representations and standards of what is supposed to be magical, charming, beautiful, all that kind of shit, you know? Black people are fucking beautiful. They should have more representation, broad broadly speaking in society. We shouldn't have just one standard of beauty. And that's not me trying to take anything away from white people. White people are beautiful too. All people are beautiful. But I'm just saying it should not be like a fucking monolith of depiction. This is the only version. This is the only standard. This is what hot is supposed to be.
So African folk tales are not good enough for Disney? A whole new generation of children will be raised on this movie. Hallie is making history. Is it? Is it really history? Somebody else has already done it. You know, this is not.
It's a fantasy story. I don't know if you all saw, obviously me and the quartering were going a little bit back and forth over the weekend, and then fucking I just started Ray showing his ass all over the place, and I think he eventually stopped, but he said I was malding out about him, but more I just like laughing at the chuds. So anyways, you know, started with my children's cartoon is not racially pure, and then he responded to that with, hey, the Serfs, he quote tweeted me and added, Ryan Gosling is George Floyd. Yeah, would this be okay, Serfs? No, for a couple of reasons. One, George Floyd was a real human being, so that's just weird. Second, is blackness, is being black, a quality that plays into this person's particular story? I would submit with George Floyd, absolutely. You would be unable to tell the George Floyd story without having to also describe the racial oppression that he was receiving, which would not work with the white actor. I mean, you can do it, no one's going to stop you, but it would just be incredibly weird for you to do that. Same thing could be said about a story, say, surrounding John Brown. It would be very strange to make John Brown black because his whiteness plays into his role as an abolitionist. That was what made it interesting to talk about the story. It would be a weird thing to represent John Brown and have him be Asian or a different ethnicity, right? That would be an odd choice to make. Again, you can do it, but this is why. This is why, like, the example of, okay, well, what about fictional characters? Is it okay if Tom Hanks played Shaft? Wouldn't make a lot of sense because part of Shaft's character and the writing of Shaft is that he is also black, and that plays into his character and his story. So again, I mean, you can do these things, but I'm just explaining to you why. There's a little bit more, I guess, nuance, just a little bit more complications to this. For a half-fish princess who lives below the sea in a fantasy novel, race does not matter. It does not matter if it's a fantasy kingdom of fish people who are all black who live under the sea. Doesn't matter if they're all Asian who live under the sea. Doesn't matter if there's a Japanese anime of these fish people who live under the sea. Race doesn't play into it because it's, again, a fantasy about non-existing creatures who live below the water. That's like, it's not important. It's not crucial to Ariel's story to be white. It's not integral to Ariel's story, you know?
Hallie's movie. And by the way, it's Halle Bailey, not Halle Berry. And also,
names sound similar. Have you ever noticed there's a light-skinned ruling class like Louis Farrakhan and such? They're always in a room with dark-skinned guys talking about oppression. Oh god, I don't want to hear the quartering's takes on this. But it wasn't just the quartering, by the way. As expected, Geeks and Gamers, everyone's favorite fucking... By the way, they need a new face. You are still using this? The fucking SJW screaming at Donald Trump? This is from 2016. It's so old. Do people still see this and like, oh yeah, the screaming woman, it's so crazy, the memes, they'll never grow stale. 2 videos. Legendary backfire, Disney getting destroyed, and then you had to release a second one. 1 million dislikes, Disney facing historic backlash, back to back. And if you didn't think this was about race, by the way, why did you have to frame it this way? Top Gun Maverick passes Black Panther at worldwide box office. Why are you, like, why does that matter specifically? Why is Black Panther the highest grossing film of all time? List of the highest grossing films of all time. Avatar is still number 1. Oh, weird. So why then? Like, why specifically? Oh no, Avengers Endgame is number 1. Sorry. Avengers Endgame, Avatar, Titanic, Star Wars The Force Awakens, Avengers Infinity War, Jurassic World. What? Really? The Lion King. Wow, that's old. The Avengers, Furious 7, Frozen 2, Avengers. Like, look how many of these are Disney, by the way. Fucking talk about a monopoly. Dominating. Black Panther's number 12, you fucking racist weirdos. Didn't Top Gun go woke? They had a female pilot. Yeah, I mean... It's okay, I guess, as long as Tom Cruise is still the stud of the whole thing.
we have our first look at the live-action Little Mermaid from Disney. And as you can see by the downvotes, it's not going over very well, not at all. Now, of course, we all know what's going to be followed up by that. We all know that Disney is going to make some claim about how everyone criticizing it is an ist or an ism, and that they stand in solidarity, and then they're going to say how racism is bad, and then they're going to make a generalization about white people. We know it's coming. It would be more surprising if it didn't happen at this point, but it will. And of course, they love doing this. They love creating these things so that they can call everyone else.
Here, I'll make a generalization about white people. White people are not a monolith. There's racist white people, and then there's based white people, okay? There's awesome white people. There's white people who are fighting against racial oppression. There's white people who don't want there to be unjustified hierarchies of fucking patriarchal society. There's awesome white people in the world. Yes, it's true. I can say that and not worry about it. There's also racist-ass weirdos like you and this entire fucking ecosystem that try to profit off manufacturing outrage about forced diversity, as if like if my representation is not entirely white and male, then we're gonna have problems. They try to do this excuse where they're like, and by the way, I just want to say, Rings of Power sucks for a lot of reasons. One, you know, I just don't understand why there's a black elf. There never was a black elf. Why is there a black dwarf in the movie? And why is he in, why is she in an interracial relationship with the white dwarf? I don't understand that. It's bad writing. It's writing. It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm not into interracial relationships, and I think they're wrong. So bad writing. That's the reason I don't like it. But I do like one character who's a woman, so I'm not a sexist or racist. I like one character who's a woman in the show. I think she's probably my favorite character, so that explains the whole thing, right?
It's the names, and then try to silence them, but you're not gonna silence.
No,
them,
I haven't read the old,
because we're gonna continue
the
to call
original
you
Little
out.
Mermaid.
I'm someone that just got done watching Cobra Kai season 5, and it's incredible. And you go, why wouldn't every company want to do this? You take an IP, you respect what came before it, you honor it in the.
Why is he breathing so heavy? You can respect what came before. It's now at 1.3 million downvotes. 1.3 million downvotes. Oh, man. I wonder if they're all like, we're doing it. We're really sticking to that corporation. They'll never do something like this again. They'll think twice of whatever casting a black person in a role of a children's cartoon based on a Dutch book that was for kids. Sorry, Danish. I'm making the quarterings mistake. Like, it's so hard to see what is going on. The lighting is so terrible. I don't understand these decisions. Again, I'll criticize this for entirely different reasons. The fucking Disney endless fucking, we're gonna remake every single IP that you all grew up with as your kids, so that way we can make more money. It's just about fucking money. They're printing cash. This is not about some agenda to force diversity down people's like throats or anything like that. The one good thing you could say about these soulless cash grabs is that they are adding representation for groups that may not have had it growing up.
Wish I could be.
And like, she sounds incredible. I don't know why the casting decision would piss you off. Yet another Disney live-action remake I will not be watching.
Current timeline, and then you build it for future timelines by introducing new characters. And by the diversity quota of Hollywood, does Cobra Kai have diversity? Yes, plenty of it. And we all love Cobra Kai because why?
Why are you doing this? The diversity quota of Hollywood that we must have, the wokeification of all things.
Why? Because it respects the story it's telling. It doesn't have the pandering, it doesn't have the nonsense, but of course, when you respect the story,
You haven't seen this movie. It's a trailer. You're celebrating how downvoted a trailer for a movie is. You can't talk about how I care about good movies and good, like, look at Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai's a good example. I mean, they went a little woke, not enough to piss me off, but I really hate this movie. It's a fucking trailer. Don't get me wrong, probably gonna be garbage, but already celebrating that you've gotten these massive campaigns to downvote these movies. This is what always happens too. It's like, look at this, look at the Rotten Tomatoes score on a movie that comes out in like 6 months. I was like, okay, cool. User score is 11%. It makes no sense. None of those users, those thousands of people, have seen it yet.
You're telling, and when you do things for the right reasons, you can't build a fake victim narrative out of it. And that's the whole problem. That's why a lot of these companies won't do it, because they want to build the fake victim narrative, because there's not enough supply of racism out there. There's
He's
just
so-
not. To meet the corporate demand, there's not enough supply. So they have to invent fake stories out there.
That is, wait, what? That is so weird. So there's not enough real racism in the world so that they're doing this to create controversy? This is such a nothing burger. This is just a bunch of internet weirdos getting all bent out of shape because my kids' cartoons are not racially pure. That's all there is. The only story here is you assholes being at the forefront of this weird culture war where all of a sudden, when fictional half-fish people aren't as racially pure as you wanted, you turned it into this big online battle. But that has nothing to do with the actual racism that's going on in the real world. Like, what are you talking about?
Fake stories so that they can pretend that this is a widespread problem everywhere, and we're just going to have to pretend that this is such a big problem we have to continue to kneel for the national anthem and play the black national anthem at NFL games and march in the streets and burn cities to the ground. It's all.
But this isn't about race, everybody. Definitely not about race. Definitely not a bunch of man children super mad about a black mermaid.
All meant to create an image that just isn't reality. But as long as you're creating things that you can build your fake victim narrative out of, that's the point behind it. The Little Mermaid is the latest example of Disney.
There's no victim. Like, what are you talking about? You have turned it into that. You have created this culture war. No one outside of the racists on the internet were freaking out about this. People might not like the movie because they don't like live action remakes. You can count me in that camp. But you were the only ones who were like, fucking, it's racial diversity quotas.
And Hollywood just being completely tone deaf and creating things so they can create the controversy and then build a fake.
That's what you're doing. You are doing that right now in fucking 4K. Are you giving into their bidding? Are you simping for Disney? Are you fucking cucked by them? What is going on, my snowflake? You're just like, oh, they're gonna force people to talk about the fact that she's black, like I'm doing right now. Oh no, what have I done?
Victim narrative on top of the controversy. It will happen. Just like it's happened with Ghostbusters and Star Wars and
That was
Rings
you.
of Power.
That was you.
It's going
That was
to
you.
happen here.
All
They're
you.
going
You
to
every
send out
time.
the message. They're going to send out the everyone that's criticized.
I wouldn't have even thought for a second about the fucking Rings of Power trailer when I first saw it. I actually thought the trailer looked kind of shitty. I thought it was like an overuse of CGI and I wasn't that interested in it. But I wouldn't have thought for a half a second about, holy shit, there's a couple characters in there who aren't white. What? I wouldn't have even thought about that until I saw all of you flipping out about it. And then I was like, oh, of course, Rings of Power goes woke, they will go broke, blah, blah, blah. Turns out the show's not actually that bad. I mean, it's not the greatest show ever, but it's not a bad show. It's entertaining enough as a Tolkien fan. I've enjoyed it, you know?
This is racist message. This thing's going to be at 1 million downvotes before it's all said and done. It's going to have 1 million downvotes. This is like Rings of Power level stuff we're talking about. And Rings of Power has really kind of opened so many people's eyes. And if you look at the comments, it's the same.
Someone fixed the lighting? Let me see. Oh, night and day. Fuck.
Wish I could
So much better. Look at that.
part of
Disney,
that.
hire this person. What are you doing?
thing as Rings of Power. And I think that's what's so funny about it. If you're not going to take this seriously, then we're not going to. And we're just going to troll the hell out of you at this point. Like, look at what people are saying. The part where Sebastian says she's starting to believe, and then Ariel stops all the bullets with her mind, sent chills down my spine.
Oh, yeah, I never showed it to you, but every single comment is basically like people being like talking about different movies. Like, my favorite part is blah blah blah, where Ariel, you know, was throwing the Ring of Power into Mount Doom. Like, my favorite part was blah blah blah. Like, there's just thousands and thousands of comments like that.
What are you talking about? It's unbelievable. Now, I don't know if this has been deleted or not. I'm sure the quartering probably had to screen cap it because he's been blocked probably too. Yeah, it's just insane. It's insanity. But what is not insanity is that like to dislike ratio, and it's going to continue to get worse and worse. Let's refresh. Let's see where we're at. So it's,
I mean, you're setting an awesome precedent where it's like, hey, any single movie that has a fictional white character portrayed by anyone who isn't white, we're gonna go after you. We're gonna downvote you into the sun.
with what they were seeing with Rings of Power, because Amazon wasn't respecting the past. They weren't respecting the lore. They weren't respecting anything. They were just trying to virtue signal with this
You didn't respect the past. You made an elf black. We all know elves can't be black. How could you not respect it? I can't get over how strange these motherfuckers are. How do you have this much oxygen to dedicate to this useless garbage?
Great franchise, this great IP, this great story.
Well, I mean, I guess they're reclaiming their racial purity with downvotes. That's it. This is the battle. This is how the master race is going to operate.
They just wanted to virtue signal off of it. And now, here we have something similar happening with Little Mermaid. Now, Rings of Power had 1.
I'm so glad that Zack Schneider just completely called out this motherfucker on that one podcast, and he just had to sit there and be like, oh, shit, Daddy Zack doesn't like me or what I talk about.
0.9 million downvotes on their initial trailer. At the time of that happening, we had never seen anything like that before. Something had
rare
released.
Zack Schneider
We've
win.
never seen a backlash like that. And now something similar is happening with the Little Mermaid. Now the Little Mermaid can't really be
I love it's like they think this is such a victory for something, I guess, like really sticking it to Disney, showing them how much we hate black people.
compared to Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. There's really no comparison there. Obviously, The Little Mermaid is a beloved family film from the late 1980s, and a lot of people really do enjoy the film, but the world of Tolkien is a whole different animal. But I believe that the Rings of Power situation has really opened people's eyes, and now here we are, a few days into this trailer releasing, and we are about to hit 1 million downvotes. And I'm going to refresh here in a minute, and it should be at 1 million when I refresh. Now, before I do that, I had a comment on my previous video right here saying the video is fake. YouTube doesn't show how many people dislike the video anymore. So apparently I was faking this video. Well, genius, if you would do the slightest bit of research, you would understand that there's a Chrome extension that you can download that will show you from your desktop when you... Let's do the Now that we have seen it, it has shown the fans the power of their voices. Your voices matter.
This is so sad. We did it, everyone. 1 million downvotes. Fuck you, Black Mermaids.
If you see Hollywood, if you see a lot of these corporate media companies just utilizing race and gender just so they can later use it as a way to attack you and call you names, and that's exactly what Lucasfilm did. That's exactly what Rings of Power just did, and that's exactly what Disney's going to do right here with this. Everybody that dislikes this or anybody that criticizes this is a...
Has Doomcock talked about this too, I'm guessing? Rings of Power stinks. Boredom. Crap CGI. Amazon wants to shut you up about Rings of Power. Amazon blinks. Rings of Power removed. Rings of Power is a staggering failure. Captain America. Is it a staggering failure? Rings of Power numbers. Let's see. Rings of Power viewership numbers revealed, and they are huge. What? Amazon reveals its viewership numbers for the very first time for Rings of Power, and they show how incredibly successful the series already is. Oh no! They went woke, but they're not going broke. It doesn't make sense. Amazon has revealed its viewership numbers for the first time following the premiere of The Lords of the Ring, and they're massive. The streaming service has never revealed its viewership members prior to this, but the success of previous Amazon hits like Reacher and The Boys, usually approximating through streaming data from Nielsen's top 10 of third-party source. Rings of Power premiered its first 2 episodes globally on September 1st. The prequel series, The Lord of the Rings trilogy, is set thousands of years, blah, 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 blah. Season 1 budget. Despite the staggering numbers of viewers who have already streamed the first 2 episodes, the show's received some negative attention as well. The show's become an unfortunate victim of review bombing, sitting at a 37% score on Rotten Tomatoes. You weirdos. Well, I mean, you'll always have the review bombs. The site's been flooded by bad faith reviewers, many specifically decrying the show's casting of actors of color to portray the denizens of Middle-earth. Regardless of the negative reviews, the show is a success, and Amazon's got the numbers from the premiere to prove it. Reported by Variety, Amazon says the epic Lord of the Rings prequel has been watched globally by 25 million viewers in the first 24 hours of its release. Amazon states The Rings of Power has broken all previous records, marking the biggest premiere in the history of Prime Video. Wow. Wow. Absolute disaster for them. How could they? How could they? Yeah. It was the same thing with Prey. Geeks and Gamers tried so hard. Like, how can we hate on Prey, even though it's, like, you know, led by indigenous cast, has indigenous producers, actually was culturally sensitive to a lot of things, but how can we fucking hate on this? Okay, you know what? We're gonna say that it was really unrealistic. Yeah, the movie about the traveling space hunter was unrealistic. So let's say that. Totally unrealistic that a woman would be able to grab an axe and attach a piece of rope to it and throw it and recoil. Just not realistic, bruh. And, like, The dog is not the dog that would have existed in that period. In fact, it actually is the exact dog that, you know, indigenous tribes in that area, region, and time would have had. But nonetheless, oh, and we're going to use a racial slur. We'll throw in a racial slur in there. Then when we get called out for using a racial slur, Geeks and Gamers is like, well, technically that racial slur was used years ago around that time, so we're going to leave it in because we think it's historically accurate. Okay, what? It was never okay for people to use that racial slur. It's kind of the problem with racial slurs. They're not ever supposed to be good things, and even if that was the case, what justification do you have for using it in today's day and age? That's super weird. Super weird. Yeah, y'all are just a bunch of racists. And I'm sorry, everybody, but it seems like this whole, they're just trying to meet diversity quotas, doesn't really fly in the face of people just like Lord of the Rings and want to watch it. And if there's like, you know, a Lord of the Rings series, they'll go to it. Oh, you weirdos. But never forget, everyone, like Steve Bannon said, politics and culture wars are at the forefront of politics. And they know that, which is why they're always going off about this stuff.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free. Just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojak, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.